You're listening to the Vocabbett podcast, where I help students improve their vocabulary for the SAT, ACT, and life itself using my unique and research-backed story-based method. On this podcast, I'm sharing the best tips and tricks for a more enriched vocabulary and pain-free test day. Hello, and welcome to episode 45 of the Vocabbett podcast. I'm Erica Abbott, a former English and history teacher, the author of the young adult novel Ahead of Her Time, and the founder of the eponymously named vocabulary company Vocabbett. So depending on how familiar you are with Vocabbett, you know that one of the frequent comparisons I make is that it's like immersion, but for SAT words. This story-based method is how you learned your native tongue. It's the fastest way to learn a new language, and it's the fastest way to pick up just SAT words as well. If we lived in a world with more SAT words floating around in the day-to-day, as though it were immersion, you wouldn't have to actively study these words. You would just absorb them the way you absorbed most of the words you know. But since the movies we watch, the books we read, the conversations we have don't tend to have a ton of SAT words, we end up having to study them. There are a few exceptions to this rule, though. A while back, I shared a handful of TV shows that won't turn your brain to mush. They're fun and mostly historical fiction, so they teach you something while still being entertaining. I'll relink that list in this episode's podcast accompaniment. But today, I want to give a shout out to a television character with arguably the largest and most hilarious vocabulary on TV. You could definitely pick up a few words from her. I know I did. Moira Rose is the matriarch of the show Schitt's Creek, SCHITT''S. It's a cute little Canadian show that's also on Netflix now about a wealthy family that lost everything. The creator said he was watching either the Kardashians or Real Housewives or something like that, and he tried to imagine what they would do if they lost all their money. I think it's pretty cute and entertaining. But Moira, the mom, at first, I'll be honest, I was like, what is going on with her? Like, I've seen Kris Jenner speak, and this is not what she sounds like. Who is she even trying to imitate? But Moira grows on you so much. Her vocal style is just hilarious. And New York Magazine actually put together a little video of her extensive vocabulary. And I have to say, I actually learned quite a few new words.
Alexis, now is not the time for pettifogging.
Pettifogging apparently means placing an undue emphasis on petty details. Makes sense, pettifogging, getting too into the petty side of things. But I gotta admit, I had never heard that word.
After a glut of Unasinus ideas put forth today, the room is suddenly bombulating with anticipation. Can we feel that?
She's actually got a lot of big ones in that sentence, but I'm specifically referring to Unasinus, which means characterized by equal stupidity, according to the video. It's actually not in my dictionary. It seems to be kind of an arcane word from the past, but etymologically it makes sense. It's like asinine, which is my favorite way of calling something stupid because it kind of sounds like a bad word, but it's actually an SAT word. And then you add the un at the beginning, un, like universal. And yeah, that makes sense that unasinus means universally asinine, universally stupid, basically. In the video, she says there was a glut of unasinus ideas, and glut means an excessive supply of something. It comes from the same root as glutton, a person who eats too much, an excessive amount of food. Those glut words have to do with too much of something.
After a glut of Unasinus ideas put forth today, the room is suddenly bombulating with anticipation. Can we feel that?
Bombalate means buzzing or booming. It comes from the same root as where we get bomb. That's an onomatopoeia word, by the way. The word came from what it sounds like. It sounds like boom when something goes boom. And over time, it became metaphorical. Apparently, the room can go boom with ideas if it's bombulating. That's another one that's actually not in my dictionary, but if you Google around, you can find some references, and etymologically, it checks out.
After a glut of Unasinus ideas put forth today, the room is suddenly bombulating with anticipation. Can we feel that?
I'll link to this entire video in the podcast accompaniment. And if you want to check out the actual show, not just the YouTube video about Moira's vocabulary, it's on Netflix, and you might just learn a word or two. I'll be back on Thursday to talk about another show that I recently watched. It's Brave New World. I've been seeing ads for it everywhere. Maybe you have too. As you probably know, it's based on a book that is assigned in schools a lot. And since it's not rare for kids to watch the show or the movie instead of or in addition to reading the book, I wanted to check it out. And oh my, do I have a review for you guys. Please do not watch this show until you hear my review on Thursday. I will see you then.